Your soulmate secretly met someone close to you. Here's what they talked about. My beloved child. Your soulmate secretly met someone close to you, and what makes this strange is that they went out of their way to make sure you wouldn't know. No casual message. No accidental encounter. This meeting was arranged quietly, at a place where neither of them expected to see anyone familiar. Your soulmate arrived first, nervous enough to check the entrance more than once. Then the person you know walked in, sat across from them, and immediately asked, "Does this person know you're here?" Your soulmate lowered their eyes and said, "No. And please don't tell them yet." But why would someone who cares about you need secrecy just to have a conversation? The answer started appearing when your soulmate placed something on the table, something connected directly to you. The person across from them stared at it, then whispered, "Where did you get this?" Your soulmate's response changed the entire mood. "That's exactly why I needed to see you." What happened next wasn't gossip about you. It wasn't betrayal either. Your soulmate had come looking for information, specifically, information about a side of you they could sense but never fully understand. They asked questions about your past, the moments when you became distant, and why you sometimes protect your feelings even when someone is trying to get closer. The person close to you hesitated because they knew certain things weren't theirs to reveal. But then your soulmate said something unexpected. "I'm not trying to invade their privacy. I'm trying to understand how not to hurt them." That sentence created a long silence. Don't skip, because this is where the conversation became deeply personal. The person close to you finally admitted that there was a reason you had learned to watch actions more carefully than promises. Your soulmate listened without interrupting. Then came a warning: if you're serious about them, there's something you need to understand before you make your next move. Your soulmate leaned forward, expecting to hear another story from your past. Instead, the person close to you turned the conversation back onto them. "Before I tell you anything," they said, "I need to know what you actually want from this person." Your soulmate froze. It was the one question they couldn't escape with a vague answer. After several seconds, they admitted they had been considering a decision involving you, something much bigger than another message or temporary reconciliation. But they were terrified that moving too quickly could make you pull away. The person close to you studied their face and asked one final question: "Then why haven't you told them the truth about what you're planning?" Your soulmate's expression changed immediately. Because apparently, there was already a plan. A serious one. And before leaving that secret meeting, your soulmate asked this person close to you for one specific kind of help. What they asked them to do next is the part you were never supposed to discover this soon. The request your soulmate made was surprisingly simple, but the reason behind it was anything but simple. They asked the person close to you not to convince you of anything, not to defend them, and definitely not to reveal the meeting. Instead, they wanted to know one thing: whether you were still emotionally open to hearing the truth. "I can handle being rejected," your soulmate quietly admitted. "What I can't handle is showing up too late." That confession caught the other person completely off guard. Until that moment, they had assumed your soulmate was uncertain about you. Now they realized the opposite was true. Your soulmate had already made an emotional decision. They were simply terrified of making the wrong move afterward. But then the person close to you asked, "What truth are you planning to tell them?" And suddenly, your soulmate stopped talking. For several seconds, they just stared at the table. Then your soulmate finally admitted that something had happened recently that changed how they saw this connection. They had discovered that one of their strongest assumptions about you had been completely wrong. They thought your distance meant you no longer cared. They thought your silence was an answer. But after learning something from a separate conversation, they began wondering whether you had actually been protecting yourself rather than rejecting them. If I misunderstood that, your soulmate said, then I may have made decisions based on something that was never true. The person close to you didn't immediately confirm or deny it. Instead, they asked a sharper question, and if you find out they still care, what exactly are you prepared to do differently? Your soulmate answered so quickly that it became obvious they had rehearsed those words privately many times. They said they were finished hiding behind uncertainty. Finished waiting for perfect circumstances. Finished expecting you to somehow understand feelings they had never clearly expressed. But the person close to you wasn't impressed by words alone. They reminded your soulmate that you would notice consistency before promises, courage before dramatic speeches, and honesty before any grand gesture. Your soulmate nodded, then revealed why this secret meeting had actually been arranged now. Something huge is waiting for you, because they weren't merely gathering information about your feelings. They were preparing for a specific conversation with you, and they needed someone close to you to answer one final question first. If I tell them everything, is there something about their situation right now that I need to know before I show up? The person close to you went completely still. Because there was something, and your soulmate could immediately see it on their face. That silence told your soulmate more than any answer could. The person close to you looked away, almost as if they were deciding how much they had the right to say. Finally, they spoke carefully. There is something happening with them right now, but it isn't my story to tell. Your soulmate didn't push. Instead, they asked whether this unknown situation meant they should stay away from you. The answer came immediately, no. But if you approach them, don't arrive expecting them to make everything easy for you. That sentence landed hard. Your soulmate had been imagining one emotional conversation where everything would finally become clear. Now they understood that you might have questions of your own, and some of those questions could be uncomfortable. Then the person close to you added, there's one question they may ask you that you need to be ready to answer honestly. Your soulmate wanted to know the question, but the person refused to give it away. If I tell you, you'll prepare an answer. They deserve the real one. And strangely, your soulmate respected that. The conversation then shifted towards something neither of them had discussed yet, timing. Your soulmate admitted they had nearly contacted you several times recently. One message had even been written, reread, and almost sent before being deleted. Why? Because the opening sentence felt too small for everything they needed to say. Stay till the end, because this is where the person close to you realized your soulmate wasn't planning an ordinary confession. They asked, are you coming back because you miss them, or because you finally understand what you want? Your soulmate took a long breath before answering, both. But there's another reason I haven't told anyone. That other reason changed the entire conversation. Your soulmate revealed that before meeting this person close to you, they had already taken one concrete step toward changing something in their own life. They wouldn't explain every detail, but they made one thing clear: they didn't want to approach you carrying the same confusion that had caused distance before. The person close to you studied them carefully and finally said, "Then don't make me your messenger. Tell them yourself." Your soulmate agreed. But just before they stood to leave, the person close to you remembered something you had said recently, something about love, trust, and what you would need before allowing anyone close again. They almost kept it private. Then they decided your soulmate needed to hear one sentence. And when those words were finally spoken, your soulmate sat back down, stunned, because suddenly they realized you may have been waiting for something very specific from them all along. The sentence was simple, but it hit your soulmate harder than anything else said that night: they don't need someone to chase them. They need someone who won't disappear when things become difficult. Your soulmate went completely quiet. Suddenly, several moments from the past looked different. Times when they thought they were giving you space may have felt like abandonment from your side. Times when they waited for you to reach out first may have looked like indifference. And the person close to you could see that realization spreading across their face. You kept waiting for a sign from them, they said. But did you ever stop to wonder whether they were waiting for a sign from you? Your soulmate swallowed hard. That question exposed the real problem between you, not necessarily a lack of feeling, but two people interpreting silence in completely different ways. And then your soulmate admitted something they had never said aloud before. They confessed that there had been one particular moment when they almost told you everything. They had planned the words, imagined your reaction, and even decided what they would do if you needed time. But just before reaching out, they saw something that convinced them you had already moved forward without them. They wouldn't explain exactly what it was. A photograph. A conversation. Maybe simply a moment misunderstood from a distance. Whatever happened, your soulmate took it as proof that they had lost their chance. The person close to you immediately challenged them. Did you actually ask them? Your soulmate shook their head. Then you didn't learn the truth, came the response. You made a conclusion. That distinction hurt because it was accurate. Your soulmate had spent all this time reacting to an assumption, and now they were beginning to wonder how much of your separation had been built on things neither of you ever confirmed. Before the meeting ended, the person close to you made your soulmate promise something: no games, no mysterious messages, no testing your feelings through other people. If they wanted an answer, they had to speak directly to you. Your soulmate agreed. Then they reached into their pocket and showed something they had apparently been carrying for days. It wasn't expensive or dramatic. It was meaningful because of what it represented: proof that they had remembered one tiny detail about you that most people would have forgotten. Don't skip what comes next, because the person close to you recognized it immediately and asked, "You kept that all this time?" Your soulmate answered, "I couldn't throw it away." But just as they were about to explain why, their phone lit up on the table. They looked at the screen, and every bit of confidence disappeared from their face. Because the message they had just received was about you. Your soulmate read the message twice before saying a word. The person close to you noticed the change immediately: the tightened jaw, the sudden stillness, the way your soulmate turned the phone face down as though hiding the screen could somehow change what they had just read. "Is everything okay?" they asked. Your soulmate hesitated, then quietly said, "I don't know anymore." The message wasn't threatening, and it wasn't cruel. It was information. Someone had told your soulmate that you might be making an important personal decision very soon, one that could change whether this conversation between you ever happened at all. That was enough to shake them. For weeks, your soulmate had been telling themselves there was still time. Time to become certain. Time to prepare. Time to find the perfect words. But suddenly, waiting felt more dangerous than speaking. The person close to you immediately noticed something else. Who sent that? Your soulmate looked at the name again, and their expression became even more confused. It came from someone they hadn't expected to hear from, someone who apparently knew enough about your situation to realize your soulmate needed to stop hesitating. But there was a problem. Some of the details in the message didn't sound quite right. Your soulmate read one line aloud, and the person close to you interrupted. That's not what happened. Now the meeting had another mystery. Someone was feeding your soulmate information about you, but at least part of it was inaccurate. Was it an innocent misunderstanding, or had someone been shaping the story deliberately? Your soulmate suddenly remembered other things they had heard about you over the past few months. Small comments. Casual warnings. Suggestions that you had stopped caring. For the first time, they wondered whether those voices had influenced them more than they realized. Instead of reacting emotionally, your soulmate made a decision. They weren't going to confront the sender. They weren't going to ask another person for another version of your story. "I'm done learning about them through everybody else," they said. "If I want the truth, I need to hear it from them." The person close to you nodded, but before they could leave, your soulmate asked to see one thing: the exact date when you had made the statement about needing someone who wouldn't disappear when things became difficult. That date mattered. Because when the person close to you checked and quietly told them, your soulmate's face lost all color. It was the very same day your soulmate had deliberately pulled away, believing you wanted distance. And suddenly they understood something painful. While they thought they were respecting your silence, you may have been interpreting their absence in an entirely different way. But there was one more detail about that day your soulmate still didn't know, and the person sitting across from them had been there when it happened. The person close to you hesitated before revealing what happened that day, because this wasn't some casual memory. They remembered you looking at your phone more than once, trying to act unaffected whenever the screen stayed quiet. You never begged for attention. You never said your soulmate's name directly. But eventually, you asked one question that made everything obvious: when someone goes silent, how do you know whether they're giving you space or quietly leaving your life? Your soulmate's eyes dropped when they heard that. On that exact day, they had convinced themselves that staying away was the respectful choice. Meanwhile, you had been wondering whether their silence meant goodbye. Two people had been protecting themselves from rejection while accidentally creating the very distance neither wanted. But then the person close to you revealed something even more surprising. Later that same evening, you had started writing a message to your soulmate. Your soulmate immediately asked, "Did they send it?" The answer was no. Apparently, you stared at that unfinished message for several minutes before deleting it. Nobody knew exactly what you had written, because the person close to you had never tried to read your screen. But they remembered what you said afterward: if they wanted to talk to me, they would. Your soulmate leaned back, visibly shaken, because they had told themselves almost the exact same thing about you. Don't skip this. That was the moment the entire misunderstanding became painfully clear. Neither of you had received a direct rejection. Neither had been given undeniable proof that the other person stopped caring. You had both filled an empty silence with your own fears. Your soulmate whispered, "So we were both waiting?" The person close to you answered carefully, "Maybe. But don't romanticize it. Waiting hurt them, too. If you go back into their life, you need to understand that." That warning changed your soulmate's next move. They took out their phone again, opened your conversation, and began typing. This time, there was no dramatic confession and no carefully polished speech. Just a direct opening. "There's something I should have asked you instead of assuming." Their finger hovered over the send button. The person close to you watched without interfering. Then your soulmate suddenly stopped. Something from the earlier mysterious message had returned to their mind. The claim that you were about to make an important personal decision. "You said part of that message was wrong," they asked. "But was that part wrong too?" The person close to you didn't answer immediately. Their expression changed, and your soulmate knew they had finally reached the detail everyone had been avoiding. Yes, there was a decision in front of you. And if your soulmate waited much longer, the opportunity to tell you the truth might not disappear forever. But everything about how you received it could change. The decision in front of you wasn't about replacing your soulmate with someone else. That was the first thing the person close to you made clear. It was about you finally choosing what kind of emotional uncertainty you were willing to carry forward. You had apparently reached a point where unanswered questions were becoming heavier than the connection itself. And soon, you intended to stop waiting for clarity from anyone who couldn't offer it directly. When your soulmate heard that, they stared at the unfinished message on their phone. Suddenly, this wasn't about winning you back or creating some perfect romantic moment. It was about whether they had enough courage to finally give you information you should have received long ago. "If I contact them tonight," your soulmate asked, "will they think I only came because I heard they were moving on?" The person close to you answered, "That depends on whether you tell them the whole truth." That answer forced your soulmate to reveal what they had still been hiding. The concrete step they mentioned earlier wasn't symbolic. Days before this meeting, they had quietly removed an obstacle that had kept them emotionally stuck. They had ended an old commitment, closed a chapter they kept using as an excuse, and made room for a decision they had been avoiding. But they hadn't told you because they feared it would sound like pressure, as if changing their circumstances meant you suddenly owed them another chance. "They don't owe me anything," your soulmate said. "I know that." Then they looked at the person close to you and added, "I just need them to know my silence wasn't because I stopped caring." That was when the person close to you softened for the first time. They could finally see that your soulmate wasn't asking for guaranteed forgiveness. They were asking for one honest opportunity to stop hiding. Your soulmate deleted the carefully written message and started again. No dramatic promises. No attempt to explain everything through a screen. They typed only enough to open the door. "I've realized I made assumptions about your silence instead of asking you directly. If you're willing, I need to tell you what really happened." This time, their finger moved toward send without stopping. But just before they touched the screen, the person close to you said, "Wait. There's something else you should know." Your soulmate looked up. Apparently, you had said one more thing that day, the part this person had deliberately kept private until they understood your soulmate's intentions. It wasn't about anger. It wasn't even about disappointment. It was a